All right. Hey, well, welcome to the show, Jessie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Hey, let me tell you a little bit about Jessie Stricchiola. She's qualified as an internet marketer and a SEO subject matter expert in California, New York, Illinois, and she's also the company founder of her company, and that's Alchemist Media. She's also the co-author of The Art of SEO, the O'Reilly published book from 2009, as well as 2012 and 2015, and a co-founder of Sempo, the search engine marketing professional organization. And if that's not enough, she's been doing SEO since 1997.
1970.
That's when I started. Along with the 8-track days.
She looks a lot younger than that, just for the record.
And she's also credited for being the first to identify click fraud in the pay-per-click industry. So, Jessie, welcome to the show. Hey, can you give us a snapshot of your day?
Well, every day is different depending on the week. So, as you mentioned, I have Alchemist Media, which is a small boutique consultancy where we're fairly agile and we really tailor our projects to the specific clients and the client work that we do. And so it can be very project-based, for example, managing domain or CMS migrations, or it could be troubleshooting a traffic decline post-migration, any number of things that can happen in SEO. We'll be tackling those kinds of projects. And so I have a small group of folks who I tap for various portions of projects as they come along. Right. And oftentimes clients will also just hire me personally to either oversee implementations or just come in and consult with them on strategy. So, any given day, I'm generally up at about 5:30, 5:45. I do my personal care before the actual workday starts so that I can feel refreshed and pretty grounded for the work that we do. And some weeks my work is spent less on specifics in terms of the accounts that we have and more on doing some of the litigation work that I do. Right. But that's really sporadic. From one quarter to the next, I may or may not have a case that I'm working on. I don't take on that many at any given time. So, and litigation work is, it's similar. It's in terms of, it can range from attorneys just want some help understanding whether or not they have a case, or helping their client understand whether or not they have a case, or they just want help understanding what the semantics are around the issues that they're going to be, supporting their client around. So it's interesting work, but it keeps me on my toes. And generally, I like to be busy. I like to be productive. And as all of you know, I'm sure, working in the search marketing industry, there's always more to do. So,
it's like whack-a-mole. Fun work. That's truly the case. Well, it's very, very important that you've taken a placehold inside of the legal community, and I cannot stop but just give you accolades on that, because there's such an education need inside of not only the legal environment but also the political environment, understanding and communicating the realms of internet marketing and the realities of copyright infringement and the ramifications of black hat SEO and all the different areas which it does take a good deal of understanding to dig in deep to convey some of these tactics, right?
Sure, you're absolutely right. And, interestingly, you mentioned black hat SEO, and oftentimes what we'll be dealing with in litigation is an issue of semantics. What a phrase or a concept meant 10 years ago versus what it means now is often very different. And attorneys are trained to, use information in whatever context it can often serve their client's purpose. And so because of that, though, what I deal with a lot of the time is attorneys taking a concept or a phrase that may have evolved by definition just because of the progression of technology and the practice. That's right. And they're using it incorrectly to further, their own needs. Because a blog post or a search engine land article 5 years ago said this is what black hat means now, it may not mean the same thing today. So you're absolutely right. The lack of education and understanding in the legal system system and in the political realm really does create a great opening, obviously, for opportunity for someone like myself to come in and assist with that process. And it's one of the things I enjoy most, because I think one of my most interesting experiences was educating a federal judge on the issues as a neutral party. I was engaged by both parties to help the judge understand what they were both trying to say to the judge.
You're a translator of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. So I enjoy the work, and you're right, and I see it as a tremendous opportunity to clarify what we do, how we do it, and to prevent people from manipulating the language and the words and the processes that we all understand very well, for adverse purposes.
Yeah, the problem there is, and it's, again, very laudable, because, I mean, the problem is that once a legal proceeding sets precedent about these definable points and references and vernacular, all of a sudden you are having another battle, not just the education at a new case, but also the challenging of the precedent in the previous case that the lawyers are using against each other, right?
Exactly, you're absolutely right. Because technology moves so quickly and things evolve on so many dynamic levels. As we know, the law moves very slowly, right? So we can have one really groundbreaking, holding or case precedent, but then it may work against the industry or against that issue years down the road, depending on how things evolve.
Exactly. And go ahead,
Jess. Have you seen the? I think it was recently just published about Google's getting sued right now.
That's right.
That they were. Basically burying all of the sites owned by one owner who they deemed as a black hat person.
In fact, absolutely. Those eVentures Worldwide LLC. And there's some major things happening on that particular front right now.
And the interesting thing that I found with it was that Google is basically saying that it was an online publisher.
Yes.
And therefore, had First Amendment rights.
Yep.
And which seems bizarre, because it's just a directory. Right? They're not truly publishing anything. They're just repeating things.
Right. No, that's interesting. I hadn't heard about that case, but already a lot of different issues come to mind.
Yeah,
but Google is sued very often for a lot of different reasons, from a lot of angles. But
they have some big pockets too.
Yeah. It takes a brave soul to sue Google. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh! And speaking of, I mean, back in. When was this? 2011? That was the Courtney Love suit. But you actually were a subject matter expert in litigation for Lane's Gifts and Collectibles, and that was the click fraud suit, right?
Yes, there was the suit involving Google, AOL, and some other defendants at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was actually, that was my first case as an expert.
Wow.
I was approached by the attorneys for the plaintiffs because I had done so much work, and I was very public as a persona around the issue, and they tapped me for that. And that was a very interesting, about 2-year-long engagement where I learned a tremendous amount about class actions, about Google, about a lot of the components that go into all of that process. And from there, that kind of got, through word of mouth, those attorneys referred me to other attorneys, and then word kind of got out that, I can help in these situations, and that kind of burst that other side portion of the work that I do.
Regarding, I want to kind of segment this as a kind of part of the SEO industry is legal experts, okay? Because every industry has those legal experts. Do you see a need for more SEO professionals to be able to step into that ring?
Absolutely. It's a very interesting persona. First of all, someone who does SEO and does it well, and who's done it for a long enough time that they can be considered at an expert level. That's already a very unique brain, right? You have the right brain, you have the left brain. You need to blend them both. You need a very high level of intelligence.
You need to be a mutant, basically.
Right? And so you need that person, but you also need someone who can handle the rigors of litigation. And, I didn't know going into it that I would be able to. I was very nervous. It was my first time. I wasn't deposed in that matter, but in the next case I took on, I was. And then eventually I testified at trial. These situations are very contentious, and there's a lot of money at stake, and oftentimes there's a lot of emotion. And the expert role is a unique one. And so the challenge that attorneys have even spoken to me about is that it's really difficult to find folks who are really knowledgeable about SEO and who are willing to put themselves in this really confrontational role on and on and on over and over again, and are able to maintain a level of professionalism and intellectual capacity and speech when you're being hammered and grilled by opposing counsel, standing up across the table pounding his fist, and you're getting video recorded. It can be really intense, and so I think it's a very unique person that can do it. I've actually worked with some other experts or referred cases out when I've had conflicts. And yes, I would say, to answer your question, that we definitely can use more experts who know what they're talking about in search and are fair-minded in their approach and are willing to kind of put their neck out there. Because one of the other things, too, that you have to deal with as an expert is, because of the issue we mentioned before, whatever testimony you provide over the course of your career as an expert, it can be recalled at any future point.
Absolutely.
So when the industry changes and you say this thing meant that, or this is how you do this and this is the best way to do it, 8 years ago, attorneys don't know and judges don't know that, well, that really changed a lot. So it can be very challenging as an expert to have things called up that anyone in the industry of ours knows would be something that's changed and it's different now. But dealing with those types of things as an expert and facing those inquiries can create a lot of pressure and challenge. So
yes, it's almost like you need to be some sort of contextual consultant as well to give some just history and support of connecting the dots and being much more versed not only on what's topical right now, but the history of SEO. Even referring back to how things were referenced 10 years ago, you have to have that level of authority. Now, it's pretty easy to write a blog post and try to be an authority in a particular space, but when you're actually on the record and giving this as much as an empirical perspective as possible, that's a whole nother. You better have your stuff together.
Sure, you're absolutely right.
I don't want to do
it. He just tapped out. Okay. So you're seeing a maturation of the SEO industry. Are you beginning to see more people starting to cross that line and get into the expert field?
I have seen that, I think, a bit, and mainly because I have attorneys ask me if I'm unavailable for a case, who is available, and I've always had kind of this little notebook of folks who I've known for many, many, many years, who we've spoken together since the early 2000s at conferences, and those are my go-to people. But I've noticed some new folks come in, and I generally like to wait and see what kind of casework or reports I can actually verify have been performed at a level that I would feel confident recommending them, because there's, like I said, there's a difference between someone having a body of knowledge versus someone being able to communicate that in a report, testimony, or in deposition. But yes, it seems like there are more people who are willing to try and getting themselves out there. And I've considered maybe giving some kind of training or workshop at a conference around, hey, if you want to get involved in this and help kind of stand up for our industry and how it works and how it functions within the legal realm, and kind of push forward the objective of increasing understanding in the litigation world, then I'd like to help people in some way. I don't have the time just yet to do that, but it certainly has been a wonderful ride for me, and I think it would be great for other people to take that same path.
It does almost seem like there's an opportunity for like ACLU style.
Absolutely, I was thinking the same
organization. That because some of the things that you're saying there is you've got to be cross-educated as well.
Yep.
If you've got 20 experts across the country working on billions of dollars worth of lawsuits, they need to be sharing notes and all be on the same page on these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
You're right. Yes, and they, the attorneys I work with, I'll work with multiple experts. As you mentioned, usually there's some type of economics damages expert, another expert that may have a specialty in a certain component of computer engineering or development. It really depends on the case. You know, I've been engaged on a murder case once. You know, there have cases that have been, you know, so unexpectedly SEO related that when you think about it, SEO is really just about
what did they type in to search? That's my question.
Where to bury the body.
There it is, right there.
Well, so this particular case was it was more about the skill sets that make up SEO, and they needed a lot of those skill sets. There was a dispute there was a murder, obviously, and it was done in a public establishment. And the establishment was being sued by the family of the deceased for damages because they claimed that there was not enough security at this location, and that was the establishment's fault. Well, the party I represented had knowledge of this murder being very gang related, and this was all kind of orchestrated way in advance. And it was kind of it was a more robust, I don't know if I want to call it an operation, but it was something that it was fairly reasonable to expect that there was really no publicly accessible establishment outside of the airport or something that would have the level of security that could have prevented it. But what they needed from me was to really just see if there was anything on the internet in various places around certain content that people were optimizing to get it to rank around these gang topics to show gang affiliations. You know, it did involve Facebook, it did involve a couple of other third-party platforms, but it really was about these gang folks trying to promote themselves online, which is kind of counterintuitive to a certain extent. But so yeah, it was very
I
very
get into
bizarre.
gang SEO. there it is.
Thug optimism.
You want your gang ranked #1 in East LA? Yeah,
that's a niche market.
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
a niche market.
Wow.
Yeah, it was very, very strange. It was like this whole underbelly of the web that I hadn't been exposed to before.
Wow. Well, as the industry changes, I was going to ask you, and you already went there in a particular manner, is there when there's experts for different type of scientific industries, you have a level of certification. You have, and you know, the SEO industry has, I don't want to say bereft of certification, but it truly is challenging to have to tie into organizations that give this level of identity and product, or I should say industry absolution that these guys really know what they're talking about. And Alsempo, your organization that you founded, is one of those type of organizations of professionals, but we as an industry still don't have the actual kind of de facto. Yes, if you pass this criteria, you are certified to be able to be an expert and be able to speak with this level of authority. Do you see a certification institute coming to bear for expert witnesses in SEO?
You know, that's a really, really good question. The last time I was asked about, do I have any certifications specific to SEO? You know, not like web analytics or, you know, kind of sub categories of knowledge, but SEO is a broad umbrella. And, you know, I had to say no. And the judge asked, well, you know, are these even available in the industry? And I said no. And, you know, I've been in the industry since before it was even being called SEO. Right. I remember the day that we looked online and said, Danny said, we're calling this SEO, you know. So that was really fun to be able to explain that to the judge. But to answer your question about, you know, certifications and do I see us moving in that direction, you know, obviously if the nature of our industry were such that there were controlled elements that were reliably controlled over an extended period of time, kind of like personal trainer certifications, right? The body is pretty much the body, right? And physiology is pretty much physiology, and that's not going to change. And understanding what to do and what not to do within those parameters is something someone should be trained on. That's not really going to change. Within SEO, every single thing, pretty much every component of what we do has evolved. whether it's the technology platforms we're working with, whether it's how that information that's built out on those platforms is being discovered and delivered. It's kind of like, I liken it to a game of chess where the rules of the game, in terms of what pieces can move where, are constantly changing, but no one is telling you how they're changing. You have to reverse engineer it as you go, and you have to try to win.
That's right.
And that's really what SEO is. So to try to get certified in that kind of environment is pretty impossible, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it wouldn't be great if it were possible.
Yeah,
it would certainly give people a lot more, feather in their cap and measurement of skills, but I don't see it coming anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a moving target.
It's like being certified in the Coca-Cola formula. Right? I mean,
exactly.
It's a trade secret that you can't. Yeah.
Well, there's deliberate attempts to kind of not fool, but obfuscate. What the algorithm is. Therefore, there's no way to be completely an expert because everything's moving, and you have almost like an enemy, so to speak.
Well, and who was the gentleman that we had on an earlier podcast that talked about that? They would say something on Webmasters and put it out there.
Yep.
And across all of his networks, he would see that it was absolutely false.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, they are literally throwing chaff and flotsam out there to throw off spammers, to throw off. So the problem is that the true core professionals, that are the clean white hat professionals, are being treated in the same manner as the black hats are, because that's the only position that engines can take, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I would also say that the white hat, black hat issue, it's really become very gray.
Yes, it has.
And it actually probably always was gray, although the less evolved, prior to Google's current evolution of their algorithm and the components of it, it was much easier, right, to game Google, to manipulate components of the algorithm to your own benefit and to generate revenue, which people did to great success. But the real issue is, the black hat, the white hat. There are some things that a lot of companies still do and sell to this day that most people would consider to be gray. Now, it only becomes black if Google decides one day to wake up and flip a switch on it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, and that's a continuing evolution of search.
No, you're absolutely correct. Speaking of black hat, and kind of changing a bit of a perspective in the legal side of things, there are so many companies that we inherit doing SEO that have been subject to black hat bullying. Okay, and SEO bowling, and whatever you want to call it. I mean, we've had several instances where literally we could not salvage the domain just because of the malicious effects of a previous engaged link farm agency, or whatever you want to however you want to describe it, that started to really just create just negative SEO against a particular domain. It just could not be salvaged. Are there any legal recourses that you know of that are reasonable for small companies whenever they have that type of onslaught hitting them?
That's a good question. I've been asked that before. From an attorney's perspective, I don't know necessarily what the legal claims are. It could be tortious interference. I can guess at them. But, in terms of being able to get to the point where perhaps an attorney would even listen to you and consider taking your case, I think the most important thing would be to obviously document everything.
Absolutely.
You want to get all of your data, especially your search analytics data, as well as your Search Console search analytics data, and any and all Google Analytics data that can support your case. Hopefully you've been tracking your backlink profile and have a sense of when the spikes occurred, or when just a certain number of specific links happened and may be associated with that decline. But documentation is key, because so many attorneys hear so many potential clients who are just really upset and really emotional, and they just know that it's their competitor. But without the data, the attorney's most likely not going to help you. But even if they are, once you get to the point of filing a complaint, you really have to have supportive evidence.
Absolutely. In all, so like whenever you're trying to defend yourself, you have to, and it's tough because, again, the nature of our industry is that it's sometimes tough to document. I mean, there's always data, and it's just how you get that data consolidated, which is the key. Hey, Jessie, can we ask you to step over to the next segment here real quick? We'll take a break real quick and then come back around. Excellent. And anyway, Jessie is a legal expert in the realm of SEO. And welcome back to The Edge.
Thank you so much.
I wanted to continue some of the conversation that we had here. A couple questions, just some more sidelong shots in the realm of legality. Are there any laws with any teeth to protect companies from vindictive SEO practices? Now, I recognize that you're not a lawyer, but you're also kind of in the ring with legal on a regular basis. You're being brought in as a SEO legal expert. Do you know of any laws that protect companies in that space? I mean, there are certainly copyright infringement laws, and on top of that, the DMCA Millennia Act, Digital Copyright Millennia Act, those things are known. But are you aware of anything that is very helpful for small and large companies?
No, I wouldn't say there are any specific federal laws or state laws that I know of that are related to SEO, negative SEO attacks at all. I'd be very impressed if we saw something on the books this early, but it's probably going to take quite a few more years before these types of behaviors, especially around a lot of the denial of service attacks, the bots and the bot fraud, the click fraud that we're seeing with automated bots and botnets. I think that is really going to be the spark likely to be the spark for some of that for some of that legislative change, because it affects so many advertisers and so many publishers and so much revenue in the United States. So I think it's going to start there, and then that will kind of hopefully open the door to more website specific laws around behaviors that are considered criminal or at least can be civilly pursued.
It's an interesting thing because I think there's still even a gap as far as a website having any type of monetary value, right? If you had a building and someone burned it down, it's okay, but if you had a website, people would say, well, it's just a website, just put it back up.
You're absolutely right, and be able to monetize and value that, right, and be able to define that in the court that's always a challenge.
Seems like negative SEO though. If you could prove it, if you could prove that someone was placing, let's say, bad backlinks to get you buried out there,
right?
That's just a general business lawsuit there, right? That you obviously have damages and you obviously have a loss, to your business.
Still got to prove that the links themselves are malicious.
Absolutely, yeah.
Correct. And most computer crime laws, as far as having anything criminal, really is about using computers to conduct some type of crime, as opposed to certain types of computer use being criminal, if that makes sense. There's a distinction there.
Yeah.
So, hopefully as we get farther down the road, we'll be able to have, different acts that are just inherently web-based and they're not other crimes being considered to, have damages results and be at least, to give people options to have a recourse when, like you said, if someone blows up your car, it's a pretty clear-cut case, if you can figure out who did it. But if someone blows up your website in search, it's a lot bigger of a challenge to address.
Absolutely. A question here: what do you think about agencies providing that provide SEO services? Do they now need to include more proactive legal verbiage in their contracts to cover themselves and indemnify themselves? Because it is, it's a moving target. The entire ranking environment, the entire search engine algorithm. I mean, have you seen the maturation of contracts that kind of protect? I mean, we ourselves have some clauses in our contract.
It's a great example. So if you're doing something today that 5 years ago was, deemed, against Google's wishes, it seems like someone could just say, well, I'm going to go ahead and sue them because now all of a sudden that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. On top of that, I mean, you inherit now. There's our company. What do I want to say? The clients that we're receiving regularly are, they've had experiences with other digital marketing agencies that have left them with some pretty negative baggage. So where does one effort start and the other stop, and how do you protect from the piss poor SEO that somebody else did?
Right. That's a tough question. So even without getting into the more nefarious, potentially gray or black hat efforts that can leave a client in the lurch, there's just always a general issue of, did the relationship work out, right? And so there's a good contract usually protects both sides, or should, in the event that there's a dispute. And so, I advise people, clients and colleagues, to make sure your contracts are really solid, because the relationship really, at the end of the day, if anything goes sideways, that contract is there to protect both parties. But with regard to, do I see contracts evolving to address these things? Absolutely. I've actually been engaged by a couple of attorneys to help their agency clients draft contracts to have language in them that are specific to what we need to protect ourselves from as consultants, as companies, as agencies, and also what we need to make sure that the client knows that they're agreeing to, because too often the client doesn't understand, or maybe they don't want to, and they just say, you know what, do whatever you can. We just want to beat these people. And some agencies will take that and run with it until the client, gets demoted or has a ranking drop. But yes, absolutely, right. I do advise people to, have disclaimers that basically outline to what extent you're addressing elements of SEO that could be considered gray, or to the extent that simply Google continues to change what they do and how they do it. You have to have that articulated in your agreement, and that you're not responsible for anything that happens should Google decide to change a component of the algorithm one day that suddenly changes the complexity of SEO, right? Yeah. So we do need to make sure that we're protected.
I haven't found that on Fiverr.
Good one.
Yeah, we need to copy that contract. Well, were there any other things that you wanted to talk about in regards to the expert side of consultation inside of the legal environment? There's certainly an evolution happening here, and it's great to be able to see participants such as yourself, taking a claim, but contributing and educating into that space, because it is so sorely needed. We get a bad rep, and on a regular basis, there's just a lack of education that creates just a cloud of mystery around everything that is truly, as we understand it, a science, a methodology that works time after time after time. But be able to communicate that with clarity, you're doing an awesome thing. Can you give us any other thoughts in along that realm?
Sure. I think what we're going to see, because I've already started to see it, I've been doing expert work for about 13 years now. I think what we'll see in maybe 10 years or so, and more so in 20, is that attorneys are going to become a lot more technologically savvy. And because a lot of people who are already in tech are saying, hey, I think I want to be a lawyer, as crazy as that sounds, and bring this tech expertise that I have to this new practice. So there is a huge opening for folks with core skill sets in computer science, SEO, all aspects of tech and web development in the digital realm, to actually feed the legal world, because they immediately have a step up. It's not like starting at the bottom at some firm. You know more than anyone in any one of the large law firms about your expertise, right? Yep. And so I think that we're going to see that, as well as more digital natives being raised on technology. They're going into the legal profession and just having a very solid foundational understanding, even if it's just because they built websites in high school or college or whatever. So that's where I see things going. And, in hopes, because I see that happening, I think there's also the push on the legislative side, because of people being displeased over, privacy laws, net neutrality, all the issues involving the web. Legislation is going to kind of follow suit, I think, just at a much slower pace.
I was going to say, if you predicted 20 years for the legal profession to get up to, what are you predicting for the government? Any clue? Any idea there?
Well, if we're all still around after everything burns up out here in California, Yep. But I think that's definitely going to take a lot longer. But I do think the web is going to continue to be free and neutral. I think it's already out of the box, and I'm not concerned from that perspective.
Excellent. Well, we want to change gears and really talk about some of the SEO audit concepts that you have, and give us just a perspective of how you not so much perform, but some of the imperatives that you would recommend for corporations to engage whenever they're looking at SEO audits. What are your thoughts there?
Well, if we're talking about a corporation of any scale, oftentimes we're talking about multiple properties, right? Yep. So there may just be one, and it could just be one massive enterprise site. But the first thing is to just kind of get your ducks in a row and make sure that all the properties, whether they're subdomains on a single domain or multiple domains, you really have a solid understanding of their purpose and a justification for their purpose. And if not, then that needs to be tightened down, because any SEO strategy really needs to be focused. And even if that focus is spread across, multiple properties then that have a purpose, then they each have their own strategy that can be dovetailed within the context of one another. But it's really about understanding what properties you have, what content you have on those properties, and who you're targeting. And this is just SEO 101 from back in the day, right? Yep. Now that's just from a strategic perspective. From an organizational perspective, there are a lot more challenges. And SEO has so often been siloed historically within organizations. I mean, externally of organizations. Oh, go get an agency to go do that, and let's just send them a check every month and not think about it.
It's okay.
Those days are hopefully going to be over soon. They've been phasing out, but the siloing of SEO is just this marketing thing. It really has I think been problematic, and I think now we're finally starting to see. It's been my experience that people, companies, consultants, employees, organizations, startups are really starting to recognize that, search really is where we can, from a growth hacking perspective, gain a lot of early traction. Mm-hmm. And for large corporations that already may be, leaders in their vertical for 30 years already, so why do we have to worry about search? They're leaving a lot of money on the table. So there's always a great case for focusing on organic, but it's not going to help you at all if you cannot integrate it into your organization in all areas, from product to marketing to sales to technology to development, as well as at the C level. And again, this is another thing that we've been evangelizing in the industry for so many years, but that's really the key piece, because you cannot be effective and squeeze the most out of that lemon if not everyone is aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it and how.
Something we noticed, in looking at your SEO audit pieces, is that we found interesting was around sort of your research process and some of those personas, and it's something that we've been talking internally about a lot more often recently. So, is there anything you can share with us? Maybe a top few tips or strategies about about how you build those persona targets?
Every client has their own process for that. A lot of the clients we work with really have built that out on their own. Not that we can't help them with it, but personas basically come out of the segments, right? So getting an understanding of who those individuals are from a customer-based perspective, it really starts with the client and the data that they have inside. And most clients at this point have a fair amount of data. They just don't know what to do with it. Sure. So we start anywhere from, you can back out from the product, right? If it's an e-commerce site, you can back out from, you can start with all of the most expensive, highest revenue generating products that you sell. And, those are your money makers. You're probably going to find like an 80-20 rule or something close to that. You can start there and back out of those transactions to get to the personas that are of the highest value, and not segment them out, but basically identify those unique people for the purpose of marketing to them, both from a content marketing perspective as well as from how you write your ads and the types of landing pages you send them to, things like that. But we've seen clients go both from straight up market research to this is the general demographic of who we're targeting, and then narrowing it down from there to backing out of the purchase behaviors and whether it's the products or the services, and backing out from there. So it really is specific to the client and what data they have and what process they're comfortable with.
No, excellent. And we find that personas really help in the conversion process as well, making sure that the content that's available is funneling people from a buyer's mindset in pain point recognition all the way down. Not so much an SEO, but there's literally, and maybe this is even a better question to ask you, as you write content that's surrounding those type of levels, that type of engagement mindset of buyer awareness levels. Do you see that as a reflection on positive SEO improvement as opposed to just architecture for architecture's sake?
You mean in terms of the content that's being built? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Let me rephrase that. Is that instead of just creating site structure that is more keyword focused in nature, is actually engagement focused. So you have different buyer mindset levels of awareness of the buyer's cycle, so to speak, and putting that content into an area where you can actually engage them and go deeper into a conversion funnel. Do you find that type of content supportive of increased SEO performance, increased search engine reaction to that? I guess maybe it's a convoluted sentence here. Sorry.
Well, what I would say about it is anytime you're getting your users to engage with your content, whether it's content you have on your own site, whether it's third-party content, that's always going to tie back into your site's performance, right? And how that tie-in is measured or is measurable really, really depends. The search at Google says they don't take social signals into account.
Right.
Yet at the same time, we do have when people do share things, links get passed around the web, and eventually they get picked up, and those links contribute. And then your analytics account is showing data in terms of how people engage with your content once they do find it in search. And so that engagement data does actually influence your site's performance. So it's all tied in, right? I wouldn't say the two notions of keyword research and topic research and targeting are separate from the content piece. They're absolutely the same. I think the beauty of content marketing, SEO, it's really just about creating engaging experiences for people, right? It gets down to UX at a certain point in terms of how someone goes through the whole journey. But I think that's the most beautiful thing about this work that we do, which is it takes a tremendous amount of intelligence and understanding the psychology behind the technology to dovetail the strategy and the actual execution, so that you're going in the right direction with the right information and you're delivering it in a way that people are readily and happily consuming.
You said that a lot better than I did.
Yeah, you did. So are you looking for a host position on a podcast?
We'll talk about it.
Pumpkin. All right. Hey, Caleb, do you have any other questions for our guest here?
Yeah, I think I have one last one. And keep in mind, this is coming as I'm sitting right next to a very tan Aaron.
Wow.
So my question for you is...
respond to that.
Neither do I, Jesse. Neither do I.
Well, so the question is, as a fellow ginger, I've been telling people for years that pale is the new tan. So agree or disagree, or maybe even true statement or truest statement.
Oh, wow. Okay. I absolutely disagree. I'm going to tell it like it is. I'm Italian, and I do tan really, 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 really well, and I love being tan. So I'm very biased in the direction of sun and tan. But, the red hair, people think it's Irish, but it's actually Italian.
Oh.
Handsome Dan, crash and burn.
With a broken heart.
I have to stay in a lot to get pale. Like I tan pretty quickly if I'm in the sun for a few minutes. So
Caleb does not. In fact, he's wearing a shroud right now.
If he goes out in the sun more than 30 seconds, his beard matches his face.
Well, we wanted to kind of finish up, and there's certainly a lot of discussion that we could go into with SEO audits. In fact, we'd be happy if you'd entertain the thought of coming back around and actually just talking about that in the future. Sure. But the book, we wanted to bring the book up as a promotion for you. The Art of SEO, and this is 3rd edition from O'Reilly Publishers. Can you talk about that book? You certainly were a co-author on that. Give us a perspective of that, because literally we at Site Strategics have had this for years, and it's a fantastic textbook, literally, of SEO, and it was definitive for its time. There was no other book like this when it came out. Give us an idea of the origin of that.
Sure. Well, the origin was I was invited to attend something called Foo Camp, which is put on by O'Reilly Media. And it's where they bring folks out to their campus in Sebastopol to camp out in tents in their apple orchard. And it was my first time being invited, and I was there. Matt Cutts was there. Danny Sullivan was there. A few other folks. I think even...
it's like SEO Eden or something?
It was kind of like that. Literally, there were apple trees around the tent. And, and Larry actually flew in on his helicopter and landed in the middle of the orchard. That was kind of like the highlight of everyone's experience. So it was at that event that... someone from O'Reilly approached me because I had done a presentation with Danny and Matt on a whiteboard. It was very informal, the presentation process for attendees. You just kind of put your name in a time slot and you stood up there, and so we all did this presentation. And afterwards, I was approached by someone from O'Reilly and asked if I wanted to author the Art of SEO. And I graciously accepted, was super excited, and about 6 months into the process realized that it was just so big and so overwhelming, and there was no way I could continue to run Alchemist and take care of my own personal health and do this book justice, because what I wanted it to be was this referendum, this very big treatise on SEO that could be used in universities and colleges and could be used in organizations that could be referenced as like the guidebook, at least up until that point. And so O'Reilly and I got into discussions about bringing other authors in and who we bring in, and we wound up getting Rand and Stefan and Eric, and that's had the origin, and that's where things started. From there, so I had basically built out the structure and the spine and gotten started on it, but I really hadn't in earnest, finished a chapter because there was just so much information. And in SEO, you kind of jump from one thing to another. So we obviously got the first edition done and then updated it. That was in 2009. Updated it in 2012, and then we just put out the last third edition in the fall. And I think it's close. It's about 900 something pages. It's almost 1,000 pages at this point. O'Reilly actually made us take out a good chunk of content because it was just too big.
What are the missing chapters? Like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. We could
how to host a podcast.
No, it was there all the time.
Yeah, but the crazy thing about the book was, as you know, SEO is always evolving, and every time we thought we were done last year, there was some new, like Google Webmaster Tools got renamed to Google Search Console for the first time in how many years, right? So we had to go through the whole book and update those references and things like that. But yeah, it's been very well received, and it is used in a lot of universities. And I feel like it's done what I intended for it to be. It's become that, as in terms of a reference manual that people trust. And yeah, I'm sure things have changed since it's been printed, but every book on SEO is going to have that. But that just means that there's more for us to update it with in the next edition.
Yeah, so what are some of the updates that are in this third edition versus the second?
Let's see. Well, we added a lot of content around the penalty situations with Panda and Penguin and penalties, a lot more content around mobile, content marketing, how linking had changed because of Panda. So I'd say those are the big bulky changes that added, a lot more pages to the book, because there was just so much that had happened between 2012, as you know, with Penguin, and 2015. And then really just updating a lot of the aspects of SEO as well as aspects of technology that had evolved so that, we could be current and discuss things like app indexing and deep linking and things like that.
Very good. Excellent. For anyone who's not read this, we highly recommend going there and picking one up. Now, you're going to provide us it can only be bought off of Amazon, or you have a direct link that you can actually sell that?
You can get it at O'Reilly.com.
Okay.
And you can also get it on Amazon for sure.
Not that I want to begrudge Amazon their deep commission, but we want you to make some money.
For companies out there too that are interested in this book, one of the nice things is that it's organized very distinctly. So you don't have to read this from page 0 to 900 and whatever it was. You can flip open to the exact information that you're looking for. It's well organized.
Yep,
absolutely.
Thank you. Absolutely. We're going to have to pick up the third edition here soon. Is there any other information that you'd like to cover here today? And we certainly appreciate the time that you've spent with us. Anything else that you want to promote?
No, I think this has been great. I really appreciate the book promotion and talking about the legal realm and how that's impacting the industry and what opportunities there are. I think is really important. So I appreciate the platform for that.
Oh, more than welcome. All right. So if you're interested now, I mean, we certainly want to send some business your way. If you have need of a legal expert, are you still taking consulting jobs there?
I always take phone calls and have conversations, but I may not always be available to take on a new case, and in which case I often can refer that out to someone, a colleague of mine who can.
Very good. All right, so you can always find Jessie at alchemistmedia.com, correct? And
yes.
Any other points that you want to put out there to be able to get a hold of you?
Well, I have, it's pretty much just on the website. I'm not going to give my email address in the radio show.
Yeah, let's not do
but
that.
LinkedIn, if you do want to connect with me directly on a professional level, LinkedIn is a tool that I use a lot. So I would say go there.
Excellent.
Just make sure your picture has a tan.
Yeah, I have a filter I set up for that. That's how black hat I get.
There it is. All right, well, Jessie, thank you so much for your time today. It was truly a pleasure speaking with you and understanding more about this segment of the industry that is a bit unspoken but direly needed for education into the legal and hopefully the political realm down the road. SEMPO, we didn't even cover SEMPO. Can you tell me a brief key piece of information about that organization?
Sure. So SEMPO is kind of in a period of revitalization right now, where there's a lot more push into some local markets with meetups and local chapters. So I think folks should, if interested in getting involved, should go to the sempo.org website and find out what's happening there, and maybe send an email to them if there isn't anything happening in your area to inquire to see if there's something that you can start up.
And we at the Edge could always promote that if we had a membership over at SEMPO. I'm just saying.
Okay, let's talk about it.
Alrighty, thank you so much again, Jessie, for everything, and we'll certainly be broadcasting a lot of these key insights over the weeks to come. So again, check out alchemistmedia.com and watch Jessie closely as she's going to continue to contribute into the authority of the science and the art of SEO.